Namaste, Sasrikal, Namaskar, and welcome to the Indian Girl Stateside podcast episode number 4. In today's episode, we talk about a couple of articles that I came across. The first one that I'd like to cover is on H1B visa applications. That there's an article in the Times of India where it sees spike in inquiries from U.S. authorities. And the second one is an interesting article on how the innovation rate of India will surpass China's by 2025. And this is a Chinese group that came up with this report, independent Chinese group. So let's talk about the first article on the H1B visa application. If you look at the highlights of this article, it says Indians working in the U.S. may find it more challenging to transition from a work visa, such as an H1B, to a green card. And from October of 2017, I believe the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has made an in-person interview mandatory in such cases. And in technical parlance, it refers to an I-485 adjustment of status interview. The article goes on to say that it's going to be harder and harder for people that hold H1B visas to seek a green card. From people that I know, the current process that you have is tedious enough in that it takes at least, I believe, 10 years to get a green card from an H1B visa status. They're trying to make it increasingly difficult for that to occur. So all in all, it appears that they're going to be tightening up a lot of the policies around people around immigration in general. It says that a vast majority of those to whom green cards are allotted comprise those who are already working in the U.S. on temporary visas. During the 4-year period to 2014, over, I believe, 2 lakh green cards were allotted to H1B visa holders. And latest available data released by the U.S. Immigration Services shows that during 2015, as many as 34,843 Indians adjusted the temporary visa status and obtained green cards. Of this population, approximately 25,000 were holding jobs in the U.S. If you look at it even from an H-1B visa standpoint, there's people that are thinking of not visiting the U.S. simply because the policies have been tightening up. I was reading an article where the CEO or the head of Infosys had come out and said, and actually it was an interview on NDTV, and he had come out and said that in order for companies to be purely multinational, it makes more sense to hire individuals from that specific country. I guess people and Indian CEOs are identifying the fact that in order to survive in this business, companies like Infosys or Cognizant or any one of those tech companies that outsource a lot of the work from, say, for the U.S., are realizing that in order for the companies to survive, it makes it even more important to hire individuals from that specific country. It makes sense if you are in the U.S. because one is working in an environment where you see basically corporate America. You see individuals that lose jobs basically because they're being replaced by other people that are much more cheaper for no fault of people that are being hired from abroad to do the work. I think times have changed. Unemployment is higher. The economy is no longer the way it was back in 2000. So I can see both sides of the coin. People coming from India, they're looking for jobs. But at the same time, people in the U.S., there's unemployment rate, people are not getting jobs. So, there's obviously a need for people to get jobs and for folks to get jobs created within the country. So that was the first article that I was hoping to cover. And then the second article, which I thought was very interesting, was the independent Chinese company, which actually came up with a report that India's innovation growth could blow past US actually at innovation by 2025. The highlights of the article, and this article was part of CNBC's website. It says India's innovation growth rate is expected to rise significantly over the next 15 years, placing it ahead of Russia and close to surpassing China, according to a new report. So my initial, analysis around surpassing China was correct, as I stated earlier in the episode. Currently, China is the leading nation in terms of innovation among BRICS countries. Well, that's going to change by 2025. And the IMF predicts India's economy will grow by a greater margin than China's this year. If you look at the article even further, it says India's economy is already expected to grow by a greater margin, it says, by China's this year. Then they get into figures, so on and so forth. And it says, currently China is a leader in terms of innovation competitiveness among BRICS countries. And for those that are not familiar with BRICS, we're talking about countries such as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and those are the countries that we're talking about here. So I think it's a very interesting fact. I'm wondering if the drive to increase, or the increase in the innovation growth rate, is as a result of people realizing, and this might tie into the earlier article, people realizing that it is important to innovate within the country itself in order to stay competitive, in order to not rely on other international economies to move or to grow. That could potentially be one cause, but once again, I'm speculating. I don't think the article gets into the reason as to why the economy is expected to grow. The innovation rate is expected to grow and surpass China's. But, one of the speculations that I'm making is the fact that, Indians are realizing that it's important to innovate within the country, be it technology, be it aerospace engineering. We do have the talent in India to actually reach and to innovate. I mean, you look at schools, you look at colleges, the talent that they're churning out is incredible. In fact, I was reading an article where the education system in India and China, is way ahead of, say, for instance, the US. I think the emphasis in India is, speaking about education, is to, encourage kids to have a life of stability, vis-a-vis when you look at growing up, you looked at parents, constantly encouraging kids to get into sciences and education. Here in the U.S., they're struggling as far as getting people into the engineering streams, or if you look at women, there's a lot of push to have women get into engineering, sciences, technology, and those kind of skills. So part of the reason why I feel like the innovation rate is expected to grow is because of the reason that there's so much emphasis on education. There's a realization now, and even in speaking with people from India that are in India, there's a realization now that we need to innovate. We need to come up with our own technology, our own sort of identity, so to speak. And those were the two articles that I was hoping to cover. Please do comment, and please do respond if I have said something that you would like to discuss. Feel free to comment. Thank you for visiting Indian Girl Stateside, and hope to see you at our next episode. Thanks.